Welcome back to the Roofing Resource Channel. We're here today to talk about the most expensive part of replacing your roof. We're joined by Daniel. He's been a project manager here for the last 3 years. And today we're talking materials, labor, cost, insurance, all of that, and how homeowners can avoid surprise expenses during their roof replacement. So is it the shingles? Is it the labor? Let's get into it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Material cost is going to vary by geographical location. It's not going to be the same everywhere, right? Because manufacturers know what they can sell stuff for in different markets. And so we're going to be a little bit more heavier on the material side than I would say labor, because that can be more of a truer fixed cost than what we see fluctuation-wise in materials. And so I would say that's probably, the shortest answer. And obviously, being close to the coast, we have a variance in materials, whether that's shingles, master rib, steel panels, aluminum, standing seam, tile, flat roofs. So all of that is going to fluctuate, what that definitive answer is, right? But I would say on the safe side, probably going to be a little bit more heavier on the materials than we would labor.
And would you say that size and complexity has any impact on that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be a lot of factors that go into, the price that we give a customer. And we obviously take into factor just total size, and that will lead to waste percentage, complexity, whether it's a gable roof versus a hipped roof, increases the amount of waste that we are going to have to dispose of, essentially, because how and where we're going to be making certain cuts to shingles. Right. So, that all obviously factors into, the bottom line cost to us at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And Daniel, I noticed that you had mentioned about junk removal costs, all of that. Would the tear off process be a big part of the price? Yeah,
it certainly can. It's going to range from a few different things, right? So a lot of times we cannot fully tell, like for instance, it's acceptable in South Carolina to have up to 2 layers of roofing materials on your house. So what that means is, 20 years ago, instead of ripping off the old shingles, they just put new ones on top. So it's very common, or more common than not, especially in the northern states, where they can go to, I think, 3, maybe even 4 layers in some parts of the country. And so that's a lot of unforeseen. We just don't know, so we start tearing off, right? And so because now we have double the amount of materials that we're tearing off your roof, well, that's going to double the disposal fee, right? The dump fee that we're going to have to take, that they're going to be looking at the total weight. That's how they're going to charge us. So now we're doubling that. So that's something that we just don't fully know that could affect the cost of the roof. Absolutely.
So here in the Grand Strand, how do high wind codes affect pricing?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's something that we run into a lot with homeowners, just because they're not up to speed on, building codes and which one we've adopted, which one we've switched out of. And so currently we're in the 2021 IRC. And so part of that new adoption was the change in underlayment requirements. So not necessarily in the material itself, but how it's applied. And so before, we just used to have to do a standard overlap between the sheets. And so now they've almost doubled that in increase. So that's increased the amount of just total coverage that we need. So, for example purposes, if we only needed, let's just say 4 rolls of underlayment for your house, now we're going to need close to 7 or 8 because of the added coverage that's required by code. And it's a benefit to both the contractor installing the roof from future problems and mitigations in high wind events and losing shingles, but as well as to the customer.
And I wanted to ask you also about hidden decking damage.
Yeah.
So how often does it show up, and how much does it typically cost a homeowner if they do have any roof decking damage?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that's another thing that we don't fully know the full scope of until we start tearing off. I would say in my 3 years, it's very rare that a home doesn't have some form of decking damage. whether it's a spot on their pipe boot or the house didn't have drip edge and now they have some rot along the eaves. So all that's very normal. Now here at Linta Roofing, we do give an allowance, okay, meaning they won't have to pay anything more. But there are certainly, outstanding circumstances where we've had to replace, upwards of 30 sheets of wood on someone's home. If they had 2 layers, or again, if someone didn't have drip edge, we've almost had to replace the whole outer edge of a house because they didn't have drip edge, and water was just steadily wicking back over the last, 18 to 22 years from their older roof, and so those are things there that can definitely fluctuate. The other common thing with decking or hidden decking, I guess you could say, is we run into more often homes that have dimensional lumber decking. And so what that is, it can fluctuate, but essentially it's, 1x6s, or even the house I was at this morning had 1x12s, has the original decking of the house. And that was very common, probably, post 1990, I would say maybe. But one thing that we always tend to recommend to homeowners is to deck over it. Because what can happen down the road, even if we hit a perfect install, is those nails can go in between the seams of the boards, or the boards could be so weak because it's had 3 to 4 roofs on it, that now the decking's starting to splinter, or the knots in the wood are popping out, so those nails aren't hitting anything, and that can cause a spot leak. And so it's just best case to recommend that to a customer so that they don't have future problems down the road.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great solution. And it prevents the homeowner from having to go through the whole process of removing those dimensional lumber pieces and then replacing the decking. So
exactly. Yep.
Very helpful. And I imagine it wouldn't affect the effectiveness of the roofs at all.
No, not at all. We'll chalk off the lines where the rafters are, so we make sure that we are securely fastening the decking. But no, from a functionality standpoint, it makes zero difference to the home.
How does getting a proper inspection ahead of time prevent surprise costs later?
Yeah, and so that's something we run into all the time. We have a full service department, and so they do a really great job of getting out and assessing damage, and catching things before they're too bad. We get calls all the time for people that their roof is maybe not at a point of replacement, or they're internally thinking, hey, now's just not a good time, I want to wait a year or 2 years, wherever that internal timeline is. And why it's important for us to just get out there to assess things is so that they don't get a leak in a year, or their insurance doesn't cancel them because they have XYZ going wrong with their roof. And so we've had people pay probably at least $1,000 or $2,000 more in additional costs because they delayed either a repair or replacing it.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of leads me right into my next question. So when is it worth upgrading to premium shingles or metal? And when is it really not that beneficial to do that?
There's virtually no difference between all the major manufacturers, at least that I've seen, and I think part of that goes because I feel like we do a quality job installing, which is how you get true longevity out of a roof. But when considering switching to, like, say, a metal roof, there's going to be quite a big jump in cost. Mm-hmm. So we want people to understand that. And so I tell people to look at a metal roof, whether that's master rib steel or standing seam aluminum, as more of an investment, because it's not necessarily something that you're going to recoup the cost immediately, but it's something that will recoup the cost over the years, right? Because that's a roof system, when installed properly, that can last 35, 40 years pretty easily. We run into it all the time. Whereas an asphalt shingle roof, people are going to be getting closer to 18 to 22 years. Mm-hmm. And so you're paying for a better roof system, but you got to have it for a long time in order to recoup those costs.
Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So it might be a good idea for people here on the Grand Strand to consider a metal roof just for the longevity aspect and for regular storms, hurricanes, all of that. Yeah.
And I think even one thing I've heard, I don't know if I'm fact checked it, but a lot of homeowners have told me that insurance companies tend to like metal roofs more, just from an insurable standpoint, right? Because obviously, stepping back, insurance companies want to mitigate their cost as much as possible, right? So if you have a better roof system than asphalt shingles, then in turn, they're going to I think there's discounts available for people that have metal roofs.
Wow.
That is what homeowners have told me.
Yeah.
Again, not an insurance professional. So, but that's just what they've said.
Yeah.
So it could be something to consider, or ask your insurance agent. They might be able to run the numbers on you, and you could look at your annual savings on insurance premiums versus the cost it takes to get the roof. 10 years, it may wash. It may be worth it for you to do it at that point. But
Right.
could be something to consider.
And for homeowners who might be worried about costs, what financing options are worth considering, in your opinion?
We have a few very flexible and financing options that we've recommended to customers, some 0% interest stuff, as well as just some normal principal and interest plans that have been very accommodating, and people have given us great feedback. And it's helped them get a roof without having to dish out all of their money. They're able to put their money in other places to still take advantage of the markets.
Yeah. And Daniel, if you had one piece of advice for homeowners preparing for a roof replacement, what would it be?
Do your due diligence, which is going to require you to probably get multiple estimates, and that's fine. I mean, most customers are going to do that to weigh out their options, make sure they're not getting ripped off. But also, what you're paying for. I mean, I tell people all the time that, there's roofing can be a very shady industry, and people cut corners a lot to save some money. Unfortunately, we see it all the time. We replace roofs that are, 5 to 8 years old that other companies have done all the time because of installation issues.
Wow.
And so it happens, unfortunately. Hopefully not to you who's watching, but just do your due diligence. We have a great online platform that gives tons of resources for free. And so utilize it, learn about it, so that you aren't one of those people that gets taken advantage of and are forced to replace your roof sooner than you should.
Yeah. And speaking of resources, where can people learn more if they did want to deep dive into roofing education?
Yeah, we have our learning center on our website. You can go on there. There's tons of articles and videos that you can look at and read about. I think we have our YouTube page that has educational videos on it, so you can learn a ton there as well and just be better educated. If you want to know, we got tons. If you want to know about, what your cost of your roof could be, we have our online estimator that you can go on and get your estimate in under 60 seconds, right? And so to give you a ballpark so you can start planning.
Yep.
So we have tons of options. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that about wraps up our episode today.
Awesome.
Just want to say a huge thank you to our guest, Daniel, for being here with us today, and just breaking down really what drives the cost of a roof replacement. If you found this helpful, hit like, subscribe, and share this with a friend who's planning a roof replacement. See you next episode.